Have you ever wondered why laziness and procrastination seem to get the best of us, especially when we're embarking on a spiritual journey? It may be no coincidence. These aren't just common human tendencies, they're actually tools the ego can use to stay in control and resist change. The ego loves its comfort zone, and it'll even use our weaknesses against us, employing common tendencies like laziness and procrastination to keep us from stepping into the unfamiliar. For example, the ego can convince us that spiritual practices are too much work or too challenging or even unnecessary. Or it'll use laziness to tempt us with distractions, instant gratification, and complacency. It can lead to a deceptive cycle that leaves us feeling stuck. The ego is a master at crafting excuses and justifications for our inaction. It's quite skilled at playing upon our insecurities and fears, leading us down a path of procrastination and laziness. The ego can plant seeds of doubt and procrastination by whispering things like, "Oh, you're too busy," or "You're not in the right headspace." Or it'll say, "Just 5 more minutes," or "Tomorrow will be a better day," or even, "Spiritual practices aren't for you." The initial delay that it creates makes space for doubt and guilt to blossom, and once we've succumbed to procrastination, the ego can even undermine a spiritual journey by turning us against ourselves. For example, the ego can use procrastination to instigate negative self-talk. That is, as procrastination continues, the ego can amplify our negative feelings, turning them against ourselves. You might hear your inner critic say, "See, you're just not disciplined enough for this," or "Maybe spirituality isn't your thing after all." These are yet additional tools the ego uses to prevent spiritual progress and keep itself in the driver's seat. It might sound like this: "I can't do this," or "I'm not good enough," or "I'll never reach enlightenment." We have to be on guard and watchful for this kind of thinking because it's damaging and demoralizing. It reinforces a narrative of inadequacy and keeps us from reaching our full potential. Such negative self-talk can create a self-fulfilling prophecy and lead us into a downward spiral. The more we criticize ourselves, the less motivated we may feel about our practice, and the ego can even build walls of discouragement, convincing us that spiritual growth is simply unattainable. You might start questioning the whole point of a spiritual journey. The ego thrives on such self-deception, using it as fuel to reinforce and sustain itself. But here's the good news. We can combat this negative self-talk. We can replace it with positive affirmations, with self-love and self-acceptance. We can remind ourselves that we're worthy, that we're capable, and that our journey of self-discovery and growth is really, truly important. Now let's dig a little deeper. The ego might also be tapping into deeper underlying fears and resistances that we may not even be aware of, such as fear of the unknown, resistance to change, or fear of failure. These can all contribute to a reluctance to embark on a spiritual journey or to continue. For example, the ego might resist facing uncomfortable truths, or it might resist the idea of change, fearing a loss of its own control. Or, as I mentioned, it might even resist the very concept of spirituality, viewing a spiritual path as a threat to its very existence. But here's the thing, these are all just tricks of the ego. They're smoke and mirrors designed to keep us stuck in our comfort zones, to keep us from embracing our true potential. The ego thrives on familiarity and control, and it'll do whatever it takes to stay in the comfort zone and maintain the status quo. But once we start to recognize these tricks for what they are, we can begin to see through them. We can spark the light of awareness to see through the ego's narrative and realize its manipulations. To break free, we can actively challenge the ego's narrative. We can question the underlying assumptions and push back against its attempts to derail our progress. By understanding these tricks, we can begin to see through the ego's attempts to derail our progress. We can replace self-criticism with compassion and understanding. We can acknowledge our feelings and resistance without judgment, and we can remind ourselves of our deeper reasons for embarking on a spiritual journey. These are all topics we'll cover in our next video. Remember, the ego's power lies in its ability to keep us in the dark, so by shining the light of awareness on its tactics, you can reclaim your power and navigate your spiritual journey with greater clarity and resilience. Well, that's all for today. Please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video where I'll cover important strategies for overcoming laziness and procrastination. These are important tips for continuing to make progress on a spiritual journey. In the meantime, you can use the links in the description below to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to check out my book, Daily Aspirations, Prayers, and Affirmations, on Amazon.com. Well, thanks for watching and thanks for your support. I'll see you next time right here on Journey of Self-Awareness.